Yay. We have, Brad, our lands manager. He took a shit.
Okay.
So this is, I had him simplify it for me as much as possible to be able to explain it to the masses, right? Because it gets confusing with ownership right away. So what I just want to show you here is this yellow line is the trail, the Grand Trail.
Mhm.
And if you see the adjacent red line, that's the property owner, private property. If the city were to vacate this.
And this is Suffolk's private property? Or
So, some of it is, and then some of it is those houses that are not in Sussex, like, I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, no, this is the Sussex line, yes.
Okay.
Because these houses are here, the parking's right here, yeah. So
So that's like my.
I have it up here, I can make it larger.
no, this is a different map just for a visual for this group.
No, is this like Mike Miller's house?
No, it's not on there, because I asked Brad where it was, but it's somewhere
Oh,
else. But anyway, so here's the trail,
Okay.
and this is Ron's property at this time.
Okay.
If we were to vacate the trail, which was part of the recommendation,
Mhm.
all of this yellow line would go to the private parties, and then we'd have no control over the trail. If we wait, what we negotiated in parkland dedication is to get all this property given to the city. And once that happens, we're gonna absorb that entire road into the Mount Helena City Park, Natural Park. And it'll have all the protections of Mount Helena, which includes no vehicular traffic and everything.
Oh.
So if we vacate it before we own it, other people get it and control it. And if we wait till we acquire it, then we can absorb it into, which the commission's already committed to, into the Mount Helena
Oh.
Natural Park. So we're kind of waiting for them to do the parkland dedication. And then once we acquire this property, then we have the ability to put it in here. And again, if we vacate it before we own it, then Ron Barth owns the trail.
And he could do what?
Because what he could do whatever he wants with it.
Sure.
So we protected it through the negotiations of parkland dedication from 2.79 acres up to 13 to ensure that the social trails continued and the city acquired this strip. So we would have ownership to pull it into the resolution of the Mount Helena Natural Park.
And so the park, could you explain a little bit more about the parkland designation?
Every development is required based on the number of acreage of their development with a formula that state statute to give a percentage for parkland dedication.
Okay.
Like Mountain View Meadows, are you familiar with
Yeah.
Mark Runkles? You know that park he has there?
Yeah.
That was part, it's a
required.
requirement to have parkland dedication in a development in the state of Montana. And it's all based on, is it lot size, square footage of the entire? Yeah, there's a formula. Yeah, there's a formula. So we negotiated to acquire all this land so we could ensure for the rest of the time that that road does not turn into a road.
So when would that land be transferred to the city?
It was supposed to be last summer, but he got delayed.
Okay. So
And now
now,
they're starting work right now, so the timeline's going, but we don't have that answer.
Yeah, we don't control that. He controls that. We can't force him to do that.
But I wanted to show you this and explain it with a visual, because
yeah.
we're doing everything as a city, and the city commission is already committed to put this into the city park, and there'll never be road traffic on it. And
When did the city commission commit?
what did you speak to yesterday? They committed to something with you mentioned it in the meeting yesterday with Tim.
Well, I mean, when Westside Wood was developed, the developer had originally proposed, or had proposed using the Grand Canyon as secondary access. Commission said no. So they've already committed that that's not going to be a road for that development. They stated that in a public meeting.
Do you remember?
I can get the dates for it.
I'm not, not.
Yeah.
We've been living it and watching it. It's
Yeah.
been going on 2.5 years since I've been here. So
So the commission has verbally stated, no, that's not going to be used. And we just asked since that time that people just need to be patient and let the process work, because like Doug stated, if we went and followed HCC's recommendation and abandoned that right away, we don't get all of
the
that.
road
We have to give it to half of the other half, the other owner on the other side.
to the middle of the trail.
We don't want to do
Each
that.
side gets half when you abandon the
And we've
vacate.
been pretty clear, we're not going to do that right now.
So I you may know, I'm the well, actually Lori and I are both HCC District 1 representatives, and this is within our district. And I was the HCC, or I am, the HCC representative who brought this recommendation to the HCC for consideration. And I worked with Joel to get the specifics of it because I knew generally, but I didn't have the specifics. So Joel was in the Helena Trails Alliance were super helpful. And
Oh, that's what I recognize your name from. You know Brad Lynn?
Yeah.
Okay. I've heard you name.
so we have been told not to approach city staff. We're supposed to go through the city manager. So I mean, personally, I would welcome interacting with you before we bring a recommendation forward, but we've been told not to bother you. And so I guess I don't know how
Do you
to.
mind if I ask who said that to
The city
contact?
manager has told us.
I just find, well, just a point of contact thing more than not to talk to us.
Yeah, I can give some context on that. We're kind of fine tuning our processes here on how we interact with the city because a lot of times we don't want 24 random people reaching out to directors or even your staff under you with the same question. So we've been asked to go to.
So it's a point of contact thing.
Yes.
And that's how this came about. Tim told us this was gonna happen. then we
Well, I
scheduled-
CC'd them on the
Yeah.
email. too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I never know if other people, 28 other people are contacting you. I won't often know.
No, but it does happen all over the city with multiple different environments that you're getting the same question from a bunch of different people. So streamlining the point of contact it makes sense. But it wasn't designed to not make us not available. It's just a operational efficiency.
Yeah, so it seems like a catch-22 because I mean, I'm sure you're frustrated that we came forward with this without talking to you, but then we're not supposed to talk to you. So like, if we can fine tune that so we can maybe establish.
Well, they're here.
Yeah.
But I've never established, don't come talk to me. No, we don't have, but I understand Tim in the point of contact because he's getting, not just you guys or any of, all the groups.
Right.
Having this people on the same board or committee asking the same question and they're not talking to each other. So streamlining it is what it is. It wasn't more to shield us. Just so you know, the intent.
Okay.
Without talking to Tim about it, he would never say, do not contact our staff. But he would say, make me the point of contact and I'll filter things to my staff.
Yeah, and
That's how we're here today.
we're gonna further develop our process to avoid this in the future.
Yeah.
I think having solely the author of recommendations reach out to the city manager and get appropriate staff input when they're drafting their recommendations will be the appropriate route from now on. It was just a kind of a perfect storm of different variables that
It happens.
made this happen. So
No, it's fine.
nobody's coming at this in bad faith. So
Neither are we.
right.
So, I mean, I guess the reason I wanted to bring this to the HCC for consideration is, you know, there's so much housing pressure and development pressure within the city. And I mean, we all look at just the housing situation. How can we, not knowing the time frame of when the parkland may be transferred to the city, and I believe that, I mean, I've heard the city manager and you say that is the intention is to permanently protect this, but not knowing the time frame and when that's going to happen, how can we ensure that it's permanently protected between now and when that happens? Because the right of way exists, and my understanding about how right of ways work is incomplete, but I think I'm correct that someone could petition now to open that right of way, and it could become open to vehicular traffic. So how do we permanently protect that between now and when that land transfer happens?
One piece of the puzzle is if you look at the plat, the road is platted not on the trail, so that can never become a road. It is up on the side hill is where the road was platted to be built.
Mm.
So that's another reason that's not gonna happen. The plat, it's over off the side up on the hill on the left when you're walking into the trail, you know?
Okay.
That hill is where the original road was platted, so this could never be a road. Based upon that and the ownership are the minor issues now. Not minor, but the timeline, unfortunately, is out of our control.
But what about I mean, it looks like a road now.
It does, it was put in the wrong spot. So if you build a road, it has to go to where the road is platted, which is not on that trail. So that's why the city's not too concerned about it, because it wasn't even platted to be a road.
So if this land, I'm trying to understand this. So if the right of way were vacated now and the land transferred to Sussex, could Sussex develop that as a road?
Well, no, because then at that point, the right of way is abandoned. So there is no right of way.
Yep.
There's no right of way to put a road in if we go through the abandonment process. The problem with that is that he now owns the trail.
And can close it
And can
himself.
close it himself if we wanted to, if he wanted to. We don't want that to happen.
And we've been working hard to ensure that we have it set up where it is. And now that timeline plays out, we take action, it's protected for the rest of the time.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why too, last year, year before that we had the annexation process to annex the park property into the city.
Mhm.
Because before that, that's county right away. County could have done what they wanted to.
Hmm.
That
2020,
that was never city right away until last year. It's always been county right away.
So 5 years ago, if the city committed to not make it a road, that didn't happen. We went to all the commission minutes and meetings because it wasn't a city road. The county owned it until last year. And then we negotiated for the parkland dedication to acquire the property.
Oh.
That planning way ahead to absorb that into the park to protect it.
So how did it become city property last year?
When we annexed. So
You
when you
annexed.
annex the property and all adjacent right away.
Oh,
So
and
now
that was part of the land transfer.
No,
No.
that's part of the annexation process that we did for Mount Helena, for all these parcels down here that weren't in the city.
It's, I'm telling you, this is my 10th time through it and I'm starting to understand it.
Yeah.
All the levels. What's that?
Makes perfect sense.
You understand? Does that make sense?
100%. So the city has done all we can relative to what we can control to get the right of way and the park property in the city. So then the county could not have opened that up if they had wanted to. So now it's at least our right of way. So the city commission has ultimate say if that would be open. So
So if the developer, Sussex, intends to donate this red portion here with adjacent to the right of way,
Mhm.
is there some reason why that can't happen sooner like now?
well, we can't force him to donate property unless there's a final plat for him to. It was a requirement of the plating process. So he could in good faith if he wanted. We can't force him to donate property.
Could we ask him?
I mean, we could, but I'm not quite so sure he would be behooved to do that without a, like for like favor on our part for him, which we can't do what,
Well, but the city still has to, I imagine specifically your office has to approve the final plat, right? I mean,
right.
couldn't there be an upfront agreement to transfer the land now?
Well, there is. It was part of the approval of the subdivision. He's already identified what is going to be dedicated to the city and at what stages that happens.
So I guess I'm not understanding why that couldn't happen sooner, and then that could alleviate the concern that it's not permanently protected now.
So state statute says park dedication happens when final plat is presented.
Oh,
So he can't,
That's when the transfer.
that's when the transfer happens. When the final plat happens for phase one, he will then dedicate, as required by that part of the project, dedicate the corresponding open space to the city.
When do you anticipate that may happen?
Last year,
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we keep extending that phase because it is at his schedule to get his project to where it can be final platted.
Further questions?
Well, are there any other options for permanently protecting it now, short of the city vacating its right of way? I mean, I know that's the language in the recommendation that we sent to the commission, but is there a way to, I'm not expert in these things, but like to close the right of way or otherwise limit and permanently
Well, it is
protect it?
closed.
it's gated.
It's gated. It is closed.
Well,
It's going to take commission action to do anything. So what action do you want the commission to take? It'll take the commission action to open it back up, which you would have ample opportunity to appear before the commission. It would be the same kind of action for them to make further action It's closed now. It's protected now. And they've made a commitment that it's not going to be used.
Well, so I,
That's the whole reason why we wanted that adjacent piece to be dedicated for open space so we can get all the property control.
well, that sounds much cleaner. But I also understand my learning curve on these right of ways has been kind of steep. But but I understand the right of way, they, the process to vacate a right of way is pretty simple and I'm just, I don't know, it just seems like, I guess I've heard that there have been requests in the past to open this up. No,
No,
there haven't been?
never. There's one
That was a
large
proposal
comment,
by Ron and they said no.
and he said, maybe we can use that for fire access.
Okay,
And the
Commission
city said no,
no.
and that one sentence
okay.
is what blew everything up to make people think that the city was considering it, when it was a citizen who mentioned it in public comment. And it
Okay.
happened to be the developer himself, looking for options to not have to build an additional road for fire access.
Mhm.
He just suggested that, and the city said, absolutely not,
Okay,
on record.
and that's the meeting that you were gonna find the date. for.
I don't know if that's the one or there's more. There's been,
Okay,
Yes.
And that was the current city commission? Or was
oh
it-
yeah, since I've been here. Yeah, I've been here 2 years. Yeah, so it was in the last, this has been going on since before that.
so I guess, you know, given this current city commission, I mean, to your point, has made this clear. What if the commission changes? I mean, that's why we have this public process for, you know, HCC makes a recommendation, we send it to the commission, we ask them to consider it in a public process to permanently protect this. So like if this commission might have that viewpoint, and we know there's broad public support, but the commission could change and maybe the commission's perspective or opinion would also shift. So I mean, that's why we brought this forward, to try and permanently protect it in as soon as possible. And and it makes me a little uncomfortable not knowing when this land transfer will happen. And I mean, it seems like the city has power to at least ask the developer to donate this land sooner rather than later, to permanently protect it now or in the very near future before, I mean, because I think it continues to be at risk as long as that right of way is there.
I mean, sure. I mean, we can definitely ask, but I would feel fairly certain he would not be amenable to that. And what happens if he doesn't develop the rest of the property? He's just given property.
But if that's a,
And there's gonna be a quid pro quo. He's gonna ask for something from us, and we can't get in that conversation with him.
but
Because
hasn't he already committed to donating this? You're just saying we'd just
Chris
think
just
effectively be.
explained that it was in the original plans, it was committed to, and it's there, and he has to give it to us when the plat gets approved, which is about to happen, hopefully this summer.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, if they have like the crosstown connector set them back 6 months last year, unforeseen delays happen in construction a lot.
Yeah.
So we can't.
I understand that. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been working in,
Yeah.
I worked in construction for years, but, or in construction projects for years, but I guess I'm not sure where the quid pro quo would come in if he's already committed to doing that when this land transfer. So why would the city be obliged to give him something else in addition?
Well, because he'd be essentially given the city property without him having approval to build on his lots yet.
Hmm.
That makes sense. He's gonna want to be able to build on his lot. That's the whole requirement. That's why it's in state statute relative to the required park dedication and when that is supposed to happen. It happens when we give him approval to build on parcels. It'd be like the city going to you and asking you, hey, can you give me some right of way? We just want it. That's not fair. I mean, I gotta be fair to him too. Because he is a property owner as well. So.
Right. But there is a larger consideration and approval process.
Right, and all that's happened.
Yeah.
His due process has happened. We just have to wait for that dedication to happen so we can further protect the park. The plan's in place to do it. We're just asking for patience to get to that stage so we can do the second piece of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm generally a pretty patient person, but I do, I mean, we just hear so much so much pressure for housing in Helena, and it's a real need, and just,
But, to be honest with you, without Ron or without that developer wanting to develop that property, other than that, we would have had no opportunity to even get that dedication. So he's provided us an opportunity to get something. If he decides to fold up shop and go away, well, then this doesn't happen.
so is this, and
So we just
So
need
we
to be
don't want to
patient.
say anything ahead of time, like,
Right.
still we're planning to fold this into.
I mean, if he decides not to do his development, then our ability to protect that goes away.
well, I mean, unless that land was donated and through some other process, I mean, seems like would still be some option. Maybe
Yeah,
not
I
the
mean,
one
it
before.
would take the next owner to be willing to dedicate property out of the,
So is this desirable parkland? I mean, is this something that the city parks department would
I don't
like?
see what you're pushing at, touching at.
The Sussex property, the designated parkland, is that something that the city?
Oh, we
Parks Department-
negotiated. Due
Okay.
to state statute, he was required based on the size of the development to donate 2.79 acres.
Mhm.
And do you remember when the signs went up with the barcode that led to a petition?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that was my first month here.
Oh, boy, welcome, welcome.
No, my first assignment was go find those signs and take pictures for the city manager before, it was on a Wednesday, because it had to be done before, you were there.
Yep.
It had to be done before 4 PM admin meeting, so I'll never forget it. And, so we negotiated 2.79 acres up to 13.6 acres with the developer
Mhm.
to continue with the social trails, to acquire that land and to acquire this strip strategically with the 100% only intent is to acquire that road and absorb it into the Helena City Park to protect it with all the protections that come with it.
Okay,
outside of the trail being there, is that really valuable for park? No, but it is in the sense that it helps us protect the Grand Canyon.
okay, so in the
That's
grand
why
scheme of
that
things,
piece is
it's
there.
It's just an absorb into the park, no, every rule that Mount Helena has, that trail will have,
okay. So,
and
When-
Mount Ascension.
yeah, thank you. I mean, huge fan of the trail system, so thank you for all that. But the city manager's initial response was that there were inaccuracies in the recommendation. I guess I'm wondering what those are.
Yeah, it said in 2020 that the city committed to protect it.
Yeah.
And the county owned it in 2020, so that's inaccurate. We can't protect something we don't own, and we just got it last year. So all the talk is misinformation, or it was behind closed doors discussions that never made it through commission.
So I mean, I felt responsible since I brought this to the commission, or to the HCC for consideration and to the commission. And so I went back and talked to the people who were involved in those discussions and the land donations, and everyone said absolutely that was the city's intention in 2020 to vacate the right of way to permanently protect this trail.
Once owned. See, there's more to the county owned it. The intention was in the future to acquire it and protect it. And it never went through commission. We went through all the meeting minutes. Well, our Brad Langseth, our land manager, and went through all the minutes, and nothing official went through commission. So our assumption is there were discussions like these that they verbally said without going through commission and not having a plan. And it just didn't go through. Nor could it have, because the county owned it. So there could be some misinformation from 2020 discussions that we're talking about today. I'm not sure, but
But then we're right back to the original discussion relative to whose right of way it was. Vacation requires dedication back to half of that to the joining owner. So then again, it would have been a detriment to the Grand Canyon to have gone through the right of way dedication. Because then a private owner has control of the Grand Canyon. We don't want that.
So, okay, so if I'm not an expert in this, and I'm not sure I ever want to be. So the portion that was thought to be the cities is now, or the county is in 2020, that you're saying that was the misinformation or whatever, that has now been annexed, and now the city owns that part, but the other half of the right of way is private?
Nope.
No. Okay.
So the right of way is now in the city of Helena.
Okay.
But if you're gonna if you're going to, vacate public right of way, the adjacent owner gets up to the center line of that right of
Okay.
way. Half of that right of way would go to the adjacent owner.
So,
That's how right of way vacation works.
um,
And I would assume,
so Sussex would get an additional, what, center line is like 30 feet, half of it's 30 feet
Yeah,
or something,
It
and then
changes-
along.
it changes up.
yeah, I think
Okay.
that's probably 66 feet wide, so he'd get 33 feet.
33 feet along the length of that two,
Yeah,
Of his
wherever,
property.
1.9 miles.
wherever it's adjacent to. So.
So Director Smith, since you said that you did have a 12:30, I want to give some opportunity for public comment. If there is any public comment at this time, we have one online and one in the room. So
I have some thoughts.
Yeah,
Like Joel
Go ahead.
Gerhart,
Go ahead.
1719 Golden Street, Helena, Montana. I've been involved with trails work in Helena, Butte, and other places over the last 30 years and been involved in dozens of right-of-way dedications and donations from private parties and land transfers, railroad issues, all kinds of things over the years.
Mhm.
A couple things that I want to point out about the motion that was put out there, and I want to point out the last two sentences of that motion, and it says, "The city is currently considering annexing other lands in the area and will be deciding on the annexation in 2025. I guess the annexation, that was incorrect. We probably should have, that would have been nice to know that should have been annexed previously, but that should have been worded slightly differently to accepting that additional. If you approve the platted subdivision, then you would be receiving the additional parklands, which would give all of the right of way present. So the intent of that, though, was that this was going to happen in 2025. And the intent of the statement is this annexation process, again, we can just strike out annexation and say this process presents a good opportunity for the city to fulfill its long-held stated intention. And that intention was stated in 2020, maybe not formalized in a commission meeting, but that intention was stated by multiple previous parties within the city of Helena, and it was discussed ad nauseum when the land was
We're assuming commissioners were involved at the time.
commissioners, the landowners involved, the people on the Upper West Side, the people who donated the property, everybody was aware of
So
that.
lots of years heard the city speak those words.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So that is true. And to abandon or modify the right of way to prevent any future potential uses of roads. So when you boil that down, what we're saying is through the city process, we would like the city to commit to getting this done as expeditiously as possible. And then through the other thing I want to point out about these lines that are on here, these are Montana cadastral lines. They're not legal survey, and they're probably off.
They're off a little bit.
By quite a bit. I don't trust cadastral very well. But as this is platted and you can go through this process of doing this, this is really important. But it is possible, and I've seen it numerous times where people have dedicated right-of-ways or given right-of-ways or donated right-of-ways for trails and other public processes. It's not unreasonable to ask that they do this so that we can protect it. Because if the deal does not go through, they don't develop it, the plots don't get filed, and you lose this opportunity to abandon the right-of-way because it's wholly owned by the city, the potential to protect this goes away. And I think our concern is that the city is not quite being aggressive enough in pursuing other avenues to make sure that this gets taken care of. It's been 5 years. People are worried about it. We're hearing a lot from people in the public that they're very concerned that this doesn't go through and the area is not protected. And that's our concern. We want to follow the process. And it was great to hear from the city manager the other day that they are committed to following this process. But there are other ways of doing this. And I guess what we would like to see is a little stronger commitment and a little help from you guys to understand what that process might be and how we can find ways to do this a little bit more quickly and expeditiously to make sure it does happen.
So I'll take some exception to not being aggressive. We thought we were by having the adjacent owner include that piece in his required park dedication, way above what his minimum requirement is. So I take some exception to that because we were thoughtful enough to include that in his and make him include that in his subdivision approval.
Agreed.
And I get
appreciate
that there's a schedule and timeline that originally this was gonna happen in 2023. Development constraints, development timelines change, and we keep extending the approval, but the commitment is always there and is formalized currently that will be part of Mount Helena City Park.
Wonderful. And the other thing that I do want to point out, we really want to make sure that this happens. We can ask those people, but I would also like to point out the city has abandoned or disposed parklands in the past. You can read through the city resolutions on there where they've disposed of what were dedicated parklands and subdivisions back to adjacent owners in the past. That can happen, and that is a risk. So we have a number of risks here that we're trying to weigh, that were on the minds of the people who donated the property and made this happen. And they're concerned that after 5 years, I know that you've made progress, and I know you're tied to the developer on that, and there are certain things about this, but there are concerns out there in the community right now, and they really want to see this move forward, and we really want to work with you and find a way to make this happen as quickly as possible. So if we can get some input into how we can make this motion work better for the city and make this thing move forward, we would appreciate that. Speaking as a member of the public, we're asking for your help to help us help you get this done.
Thank you. Any public comment online?
Hey guys, it's Nate with Prickly Pear Land Trust. The only PPLT's position is the same. You know, we want permanent protection of LeGrand Canyon, and I just wanted to clarify kind of one point that I think folks might find a little confusing, referencing the county versus city ownership. Obviously, I think what Doug is referencing in terms of the county ownership is specifically the right of way, since that was a county road at one point. And the ownership, though, the lands that were donated to the city through the White and Graham transfers in 2019 and 2020, the city has been the owner of the land adjacent to said right of way since that point in time. So the land has been in city hands for 5 or 6 years now, but that right of way was a county road that has since changed hands. And yeah, anything we can do to kind of move this process along. I mean, our goal is certainly the permanent protection and honoring the donor intent of those folks that we worked with in 2019 and 2020, and then our conversations with the city at that time. Thank you.
So we'll wrap this up, but I appreciate you coming. Once again, we're going to be meeting on Tuesday at 7 o'clock at the library, where this will be brought forward again for possible reconsideration if the body would like to take that route. You're both invited to come in person, or if you'd like to submit a written statement kind of outlining how the city stands on this, I think that'd be very helpful. So
Can I ask one question before? So during, I presented the HCC report to the city commission on the 10th, and elaborated a little bit on this recommendation and a couple other things from HCC, which is by coincidence that I was the reporter for that particular day. But City Manager Burton responded, and he said that he would like a comprehensive, I'm paraphrasing, but a comprehensive public engagement process, and the city planned to bring a resolution regarding the Mount Helena City Park to the commission for consideration. What does that mean, a resolution, and what kind of protection would that provide?
Doug, you probably speak to it.
I'm not sure which,
There's already
because
there's already a designation relative to Mount Helena Park in a resolution, right? So I think his intent when he spoke about that is to amend that to now include the adjacent donated property, and then make statements in that new resolution about LeGrand.
right, so we take the current resolution that exists with the protections
Mhm.
and absorb that yellow line into it to protect the road. So we're talking, he said it differently than I, but I think that's the same
Right.
resolution that already exists, that has the protections. And then we're gonna absorb it once we own that trail, and then it'll go into this Helena's Natural Park resolution.
And then that resolution would state the importance of LeGrand Canyon, and then make a commitment in that resolution
about its protection.
So, as Ben said, we have, our meeting coming up on Tuesday. We normally meet on Wednesdays, but we're having this open house, on Tuesday. If the HCC continues to support the recommendation, maybe changing some words, or submitting it, I mean, it's been submitted to the commission, already, and it stands. I mean, we're the executive, part of the executive committee, but we don't have the ability to undo something the whole body did. So that will be taken up on Tuesday potentially. We promised to give an update on this. So I guess I'm just wondering, assuming the HCC stands by even its original recommendation or a modified recommendation, would you support getting this on before the commission to have the public process play out and hear the public support that we know is there for keeping this as a trail? Would you support getting that before the commission sooner rather than later? And I mean, like soon, not waiting for the final plat and the formal annexation process?
Well, that's out of our pay grades. That's a city attorney, city manager, determination, decision. We've come up with timelines that we're going to be taking to the commission. We just talked about this last week, so this kind of ties into the answer. A timeline of what we just talked about, which we're not in control of the timeline. It's once this happens, once this happens, but we can't control like what month it's going to happen. But we have a 4 bullet point process that we're going to be able to share with the commission and educate and you all, just to show you the steps, not the timeline by months, because we can't control that, but the steps of the process to acquire the property.
I mean, that sounds super helpful for the public to understand. Could we do it in a way that the public has access to that information so we can show the support now for I'm receptive and sympathetic to the constraints here and we didn't mean to get ahead of things, but at the same time, we want to balance that process with the public process. That normally what happens is HCC makes a recommendation, we send it to the commission, and it gets on the commission's agenda. And that right now that public process is obstructed. And I'm wondering if we could have if you would support at least providing this valuable information to the public so we can understand what the city is doing to permanently protect this and a time frame for that happening. But right now, there's no public process.
The answer is yes, we can. Because Tim called me in last week to create the 4-step bullet points of how it all will shake out. The only thing we can't give is the timeline because it's out of our control for the developers' timeline to achieve each step that is required for the city to take ownership of that project.
So I think this is valuable information for the public to hear, and we don't have many public here today. I mean, I appreciate Joel and Nate taking time to it.
And the intent of the city manager asking to get this timeline is to take it to the public. So we are on the same page. Yes, we will. The only constraints we have right now is our budget season's here, and we're pushing back a lot of stuff because we're all clogged up because April's taken, you guys, how the budget process goes. Commission meetings in April are all bogged down and full. So all of our March stuff that we couldn't get on goes back to there. So this is a summer, early summer something. I think the commission agendas will start opening up and we'll be ready to then have that public meeting and have the discussion.
Well, that would be helpful.
The good news is the city manager already initiated this to happen and you're asking for it. So we're on the same page because it's important. It's a very sensitive topic.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't understood that all I've heard is that he was opposed to having it on the commission agenda. So I hadn't heard. So that's
well, no, I'm assuming because the words he used was, let's get the process laid out. So when needed, we'll have it. The commission will be informed. So then that's assuming it. That means it will go to commission. If he says so, the commission will be informed. So, but I'll have to get 100% surety that that's what his words meant, and I'm not assuming.
Okay.
Why? I mean, those are his exact
that's
words.
good news. I hadn't heard.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd heard differently. So that's helpful.
Yeah, we want to be open and transparent and educating. You see how hard it is with all the different lingo and languages to have the common citizen understand it. as we're all going through with some of it.
Right,
Yeah, so yeah, we'd be happy to.
thank you.
So pending any other further comments, we'll go ahead and adjourn.
Can I offer one comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it'd be super helpful for the public and the people that are concerned about it to know that that bullet list is that you're working on that, have it available, and I think would help to assuage a lot of concerns that the city has not been working on this, because I think it would lay out that the city has thought about this, and then be something that we could track and say we're at least on track on this bullet. Timelines, timelines are secondary. We all know that schedules change.
Right.
But if we have a process in mind that says, and it's stepwise, we're gonna do this and this and this, then we can track it and say there is progress. And that's something that we can use to assuage a lot of those concerns.
In that list Doug talks about, we've not put it out there for all the general public. We're not hiding anything, but it's the same process or workflow or approval flow relative to those bullet points that we've communicated to everybody that's asked. We've been pretty consistent about this is a process that's going to be played out. We've just not, for whatever reason, not provided publicly, if that makes sense. Not hiding anything. It's just we've been consistent. That's the bullet points that we've let everybody know when the question's been asked.
And I would also offer one more suggestion. Along with that bulleted list, prepare a risk register of what happens if one of those items in that bulleted list does not occur. What are the trickle down effects if step number 1 does not occur? Does that then impede our ability to protect it permanently later? What is our risk there? What's our exposure there? And then what's our potential activity that we would need to take upon after that to make sure that we can make a corrective action and make sure the thing is permanently protected, even if something goes wrong in that process. I think it's very important to think about those things well in advance.
All right, any further quick comments?
I just
Or
had
major.
one. So maybe our recommendation would be more palatable if it was, HCC recommends that the city, recommit to making this happen. And so then it can be discussed more in a public forum, like we would like to see the city have this be on their priority list as time allows. And that would kind of get an opportunity to have the bullet list out there.
And for us to work together more and then proceed through the city processes with the public and you all.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and so I've worked with the public on things like sort of like this for a long time, and I believe you're not hiding anything, but at the same time, the public doesn't have the information, and so sometimes the public's imagination goes to the, oh my gosh, it's not, we're going to lose this, and so that in the absence of the information vacuum, people, it's just sort of human nature. We often kind of assume, oh my gosh, this bad thing might happen. So the sooner we can clarify that for the public, that the city we're on the same page, that we want to protect this, and the city can hear that clearly from the city in some way that if the change, we all might not be in part of the discussion next time, and the commission might be different. That the city can, or the public can hear that. And I think that would really, because we know those 900 respondents to the trail survey last fall that Prickly Pear did, 100% support of keeping this. And I think, and those 150 landowners that participated in the donation of the land. There's broad public support. And so just making that clear that the city is on the same page as that broad public support, I think would be super helpful.
And I think it's a good start here because we are communicating and coming to an understanding of the situation, solutions, and clarify it. Like we've even talked about if you think back to the school district had a 2-page article in the IR when the property taxes went up. And the superintendent 7 times in there clarified the school districts do not receive any of these funding. And that's what the community was saying. So he had to set the record straight in the paper. So I even said to Tim, maybe we need to get an article just for the public so that everybody can read it and then say, these are the facts. So we've talked about the proper way to address it, and we all care about it.
Great.
The city commission, the city manager, Chris, myself, this is not going to become a road if there's anything we can do on.
Okay. Is there any further comment? Very brief comment. Okay. Seeing none, we will adjourn. Thank you so much for your time.